Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Taiwo. Oyedele. Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning.
Morning. My name is Rotimi Adeyemi, and I have Mr. Olufemi Olarinde here. And today we are working on a 3-day process. Today is the last day on the Business Advantage series, looking at the navigating the new tax regime and implication for businesses. So we have a lot of people from various SMEs right here, from Full Range Microfinance Bank, L'Oreal Group, and a lot of other companies. And it has been very engaging. So it's a big privilege to have you here as the lead, the president of the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee. So thank you. And for me, it's a special day because you taught me 26 years ago in WISE, and it was one of the. In fact, my ICANN certificate, I'll probably add your name. I should add your name to it. So it was one of the first people behind that. So thank you so much for that opportunity too. So without wasting your time, we know you are very busy. So we'll just let you have like the floor, just a little bit intro about beyond the tax reforms, the other aspect of the fiscal policy that your committee is actually working on.
All right, thank you very much, and good morning to everyone there. Thank you for inviting me, and sorry that I couldn't be with you in person because of other prior commitments outside of the FCT. You already have my very good friend Femi Olarinde there, so he's more than capable to address all the issues. But let me provide a little bit of additional context based on the question you asked. It's good for business people and by extension, taxpayers generally to try and understand reforms and policies within the broader context. Otherwise, you may find yourself, which sometimes I see tax professionals are often guilty of this. So they just jump right into the tax questions and try to answer it. And if you don't understand the big picture, your answers and your decisions are likely to be wrong or maybe suboptimal. So we know that our economy was moving in the wrong direction and grinding towards a complete halt by the middle of 2023. So Mr. President introduced very far-reaching reforms, which I don't need to recount. Certainly issues to do with FX management, issues to do with subsidy, and of course, fundamentally, the tax reforms. But even beyond that, there is the fiscal aspect, which is broader than just tax. And that includes how governments spend our money. That includes the quality and priority of spending, which is something that Nigerians are rightly concerned about. If you just listen to commentaries, people say it a lot. Even though I get the sense that many people don't quite understand it, they just know they don't like the way government is running the economy. And there's also the aspect of debt management and sustainability. How do you finance your budget deficits? Do you monetize it, which is essentially government just printing money to spend, which created some of the problems for us that we are still dealing with today because we printed around 30 trillion naira a few years back. Or do you borrow locally or do you borrow internationally? We know that the Monetary Policy Committee had their meetings yesterday and they made certain decisions. Personally, I wanted something a lot more aggressive in the dovish side so that just let's loosen up so that we can have growth. Because at the end of the day, when you have economic challenges and you introduce reforms, you have volatility. After volatility, you move towards stability. Now, once you have stability, you move towards growth. So that's where we are now. And it doesn't seem like everybody is moving as quickly as they should because it's growth that will translate the macroeconomic indicators that are positive into micro outcomes for individuals. That's when people will feel it in their disposable income. That's when they will feel it in their ability to earn a good living, meet their basic needs. and so on and so forth. So as part of the reforms that I was given the opportunity to lead eminent Nigerians to work on, we have a national fiscal policy document. This we discussed with the National Economic Council about 2 weeks ago, and then we are following up with them now to have their endorsement because it's a national framework. We don't want it to be something that Mr. President will just approve and then they'll say it's for federal government. So this work is in progress. We have the aspects of the harmonization of our taxes, and then some of it mostly to do with subnational. So what we have done is to draft a model law along with the Joint Revenue Board, which we have sent to the states to enact for themselves because the Supreme Court said that the approved list of taxes and levies collection acts, which some of you may be familiar with, was declared unconstitutional. So these new tax laws have now, in a way, repealed it. And then we want the state to enact laws for themselves to outlaw multiple taxation. And as of the last time we updated it about last week, we have about 12 of them have enacted these laws. About 13 of them have it with their houses of assembly. So this is real progress when the ordinary person will move things around and not be harassed at every point for payment of taxes and levies, many of which are even illegal and collected by non-state actors. So it's a journey. Still on harmonization as well, we have the national single window, which is meant to facilitate international trade, whether you're importing or exporting. Instead of dealing with 20, 22, 25 agencies, you just have one point of truth where you can do your business legitimately with more transparency. And you would also see that more broadly, the issues around revenue goes beyond taxation. And many of us have been discussing the Executive Order 09 that Mr. President signed a few days ago. These are also part of the areas of revenue mobilization. By the way, we identified 4 areas for revenue mobilization in a sustainable manner for Nigeria. One of it, of course, is tax. That's what most people are interested in because they feel the impact immediately. But beyond tax, you have the ones to do with natural resources, not just oil and gas, but even solid minerals. You have the ones to do with government-owned enterprises. This is where NNPC Limited will come in, for example, and a few more significant government agencies that if you optimize value, from those agencies, we can actually make more than we are generating from taxes because we are richly blessed. Sometimes when I look at Saudi Aramco's report, I know that their volumes are more than us, right? But even proportionately, you see the numbers that those guys pay governments, and you just envy them when you hear 100 and something billion coming from a government agency. Why are we not getting $20 billion from us, right? Even if you just even benchmark against NLNG and you say if NLNG is 5% of NNPC and NLNG can give us $1 to $2 billion, why are we not getting 20, from NNPC? That's a significant source of revenue. And then the last one but not the least is government assets. So government has assets all over the place, from stadia to government. I think there is this government secretariat in Lagos. Every time you drive past it, it's quite just painful at the level of waste, right? So the Ministry of Finance Incorporated is working on collating the assets in an asset register. I think they're almost done now. We estimate that those assets are worth more than 100 trillion naira. So imagine you sweat the assets and generate just 10 to 15% returns annually. That's about 10 to 15 trillion. That's more than we are making from VAT. In fact, it's like 5 times what we're making from personal income tax nationwide. Overall, in the interest of time, these reforms are meant to address fundamental issues that are structural and they are systemic in a way that when this process is, I'm careful not to say concluded because you don't get to the end of it. But when this system or this new reform is fully implemented, people will feel the impact in many ways where vulnerable individuals, low-income earners, and small businesses will have the space to breathe because they have no capacity to pay tax and they have been exempted. Middle class, medium-sized businesses, large firms, upper income, high net worth individuals will pay their fair share. And then you'll see that impediments to growth will be removed so that Nigeria becomes competitive both within Nigeria, regionally, and globally. And then we create opportunities for our people while government will generate revenue in a sustainable manner to provide social services, public good, infrastructure, and human capital development. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. I don't know if we are ready for questions now. I mean, that's clear. It's showing insight that it's just beyond tax, that there's other things around that. And I can also confirm to you that people are already feeling the impact. I know a particular organization that had like 1,000 security guards, and in the month of January, they had like an increase in their salary, and it was because of that. They don't have to pay tax anymore for so they felt that our salary been increased now, so they have more disposable income. So that effect is already being felt by people. So I don't know who's going for the first question. So okay, you answer the audible, please. Okay. Sorry, we have questions from members.
Good morning, Mr. Oyedele, and I must commend your efforts. Thank you very much for also honoring us. My question is going to be more like a general question. I don't want to be specific on new task law. I understand that the target of the government is actually to lesser tax burden, especially low income and small businesses. As for the big guys, they already know what the law is, just some little amendments there and there, and of course they have right of compliance to some extent. But if you look at the area of informal sector, which majorly reside with the states government, either they don't have data, and most of them they are just dealing with some of these tax issues for the first time. And I believe at this point, still trying to get the buy-in of especially the state government, in keying into this laudable project at this point in time. I think it's a bit, it's dragging the system back. Because if you see, most of the questions you see around now is the small business, because they are the main driver and they form the bigger part of the population. If you don't get things like about their personal income, which of the aspect of the tax is taxable, those information are not getting to them, as well as also getting their data right, so that you can easily approach any of them and say, this is what you are supposed to do. Especially for people that are not doing anything. If you've not been doing anything, it's difficult for you to start loading them with the new tax law. The first stage would be, how do we get them into the system and also make it friendly? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And you are right, for us, and I feel like that also personally, I feel like we've lost decades as a country and as a people, and therefore we're in a hurry to get things done. But we also have to recognize that some of these things are entrenched in the system. Many of those things have been around before some of us were born. So realistically, they won't just happen immediately. So the tax laws were enacted, signed into law 26th of June 2025. The last ones took effect 1st of January 2026. That's even less than 2 months ago. And honestly, in my adult life, I haven't seen the level of progress with subnational at the extent that we're seeing it now. I just told you that 12 of them have enacted a law that we just introduced and shared with them by around December last year. So that means they've gone through the whole process of their Ministry of Justice, their debates with their stakeholders, they presented to the lawmakers, they've passed it, and the governors have signed. It's actually remarkable. I think we need to commend them, while we also try and put pressure for them to do more. But it goes beyond enacting those laws, right? Those laws are the foundation that you now need to build on. the reality is that many of them, the things they have done to unwind those things will take months. Maybe if we're unlucky, it might take more than a year. There are states where they outsource. I don't know whether you're familiar with that concept. They outsource their taxes to private individuals. So I'm a governor or I'm a chairman of a local government. I'll go and meet my friend and say, I'll sell to you a collection of radio and TV license fees. You give me, local government, 50 million naira, and then anything you collect, you keep it, right? So that's a contract that somebody has signed. And those guys will just go like there's no tomorrow, printing receipt here and there, harassing people. Some of them use thugs. They actually beat people up in trying to collect taxes in 2025, 2026. Like we are in the days of Mongo Park. So these things will take time to unwind. But that process has started, and that's why we need to stay focused and stay the course. Part of this reform as well, we sent proposals to the National Assembly to amend the Constitution because some of these chaos we are dealing with were actually enshrined in the Constitution itself. So, which means, somebody can one local government person can just go to court today and stop the whole thing and say it's unconstitutional. So that's why at the same time we're trying to deal with the root cause of the problem. But you also know that amending the constitution is not a piece of cake. It has progressed, second reading, of course, first reading, second reading, committee stage, and now they're trying to engage with stakeholders across the country. So anytime they show up in your territory, please, join us to put a word. So essentially, I'll say that yes, we are making progress. It's not quick enough, but much better than anything we have seen before. And the point you made around registration and having a reliable database is spot on. Is spot on. In Nigeria, before this reform, all the people registered with all the 36 states for taxes, right? Local government don't even have any register you can take to the bank. All the states, there were less than 10 million active taxpayers in a country where
It's not from the It's not from the soil. It's from the Can you hear us?
you have about 86 million people, it is enough for you to pay tax. The fact that you are exempt, there's a requirement for you to register.
Okay, we lost you. We lost you for like 40 seconds.
Yes, I noticed. Apologies. So what I'm trying to say is that, from about 10 million people registered and actively paying taxes across the country, just before the reform a few months ago, we now have over 100 million, I think about 102 million people are now registered. So I can tell everybody in the room now that in case you don't have a tax ID, one has been created for you. So what you need to do now is not even to register, it's to go and retrieve it. And you can go to NRS website or GRB website, just put your NIN, it will tell you what your number is. So government now has that data. And that is the building block on which everything else will be layered. We want to get to a point where just with your phone number, government should have all the details about you and everything that you do, so that if you are truly low income earning or you are in formal sector that is a nano business, you are truly exempted. And when you are not, you should pay your fair share of tax without anybody being above the law. That's the concept, and I think is the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Very spot on. Next, that cable. Okay, you.
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, sir. So, as follow up to what you just said, my question is this: is the revenue service, are they making a move towards a real-time data integration with financial institutions, just to have transaction on site? That's thank you.
Yes, so the answer is yes. The answer to your question is yes. So the plan is to have real-time integration. And that initiative is being led by the Nigeria Revenue Service. But ultimately, the platform will be warehoused within the Joint Revenue Board so that it's truly national. So you will see some of the provisions of the new tax laws like electronic invoicing. When you issue an invoice under that platform or compliance with that system, the information goes to the government immediately. So they actually see your transaction as you're doing it. If you decide not to use that system, the system will recognize like a black hole. So that means something is happening that we are not aware of. So whether you use the system or not, it provides intelligence to the government. And I was saying to people, they said, if you create exemption of 100 million, all the businesses will just be 100 million or less because nobody wants to pay tax. I said, that's fine. Let them feel free to go ahead and lie. And then they'll see the power of tax intelligence and technology, how you can find out very quickly. If you buy anything, if you're selling mobile phones like this, right? And you buy like, 1,000 units, you can buy 1,000 units from a local seller. The seller, through the electronic invoice, will say that I have sold to that person, right? Because you bought so many quantity, it indicates that you are selling it. The tax system will capture that 1,000 unit as your inventory. Every time you sell one and you use the electronic invoicing, it will also reduce your inventory by one and capture the person you sold to. If you decide not to use the inventory, the e-invoicing system, or maybe you use it sometimes and sometimes you don't use it. At the end of the year, when you submit your annual financial statement, your closing inventory in your account will be different from what the taxman has on their system, and you have some hard explaining to do. If you imported the mobile phone as well as you're clearing it, that's why the national single window is harmonizing the system. As you're clearing the goods, the taxman is also recording the inventory for you as something you have bought, either for use in your business or for onward sale. If you build a house and you don't want to tell the government about it, when you finish building the house, you're likely to connect to electricity. Some people who live in Lagos, but I've seen from Ikeja Disco, saying to all their customers that they needed to update their data in line with the tax law because even your activities with utility companies, whether it's your phone company, when the misinformation in Nigeria was at the peak about this reform, and they said, oh, they will debit your bank account, and we're concerned that there will be a run on banks. But people did not even realize that it's not only bank information that the government can get about you, they can get anything and everything. Your mobile phone, would you stop using your mobile phone? You buy data, wouldn't they get that one? You use electricity, wouldn't they get? If you decide to be off grid, the person that is doing the solar off grid for you will sell it and also do invoicing. So, in a nutshell, government is piecing together the information we have within the system, connecting the dots, using technology. This is not because government is trying to be big brother or to harass anyone. It's just that all those countries that we always compare Nigeria with, there's a way they built their own systems. We are trying to build our own system as well. And therefore, I think everybody should support it so that we can deliver the Nigeria of our dream.
Thank you very, very much for that. Funny enough, I think you said something like that yesterday. So, what was that? Next question. Yeah, question.
Yeah, I have a question. I have two questions. Good morning, sir. So, my first question is, what are the best practices for managing pay, ensuring compliance with the new tax reforms? And my second question would be around dividends, on how the new tax reforms in Nigeria impact dividends, income for individuals and businesses.
Okay, so I think you're asking me for tax planning, which I'm not able to do. I'm on the policy side, so I'm not supposed to identify loopholes, but I can tell you how to comply efficiently. So for PAYE, and if it's a small company where you cannot afford expensive softwares or expensive consultants, I'll say you can leverage on the free solutions that are available, including the task calculator we have on the website of the Fiscal Policy Reform Committee. And that's fiscalreforms.ng. You find that calculator there. It can give you, a head start. So first thing is to understand the provisions in the law in terms of what exemptions are applicable to you. For example, some people did wrong analysis and said that we're exempting 800,000 naira per annum, but that's not what we are exempting. 800,000 is the taxable income. That's not the amount of income that you earn. The taxable income is your gross income less deductibles. There are about six of them, including pension contribution, National Housing Fund, uh, NHIS, that's insurance scheme, mortgage interest, I think five. And then you have the rent relief of 500,000 naira. You also take that deduction. So we just concluded our session with the Joint Revenue Board last week. You're going to see very soon they will issue a personal income tax regulation that would outline. I was very pleased that we're able to conclude at that meeting that for the 500,000 naira rent relief, you don't need to go and bring receipt and rent agreement, because you don't want to save somebody small money and then give them a lot of burdens, right? So being aware of all of those and putting them properly into your computation system, which can just be on Excel, but just make sure you get someone who is competent to help you review it. This tax law, for example, if you earn around 1.8 million naira a month or less, you should see a drop in your PAYE. I was speaking to a CEO of a big company last week who has a lot of people who earn around 300, 400, 450, 500, which is not really bad, but they're not like high income earners. And he said they implemented the new tax law and their pay dropped. I said, sir, it did not drop because of our tax reform, or your accountant did not know how to do the calculation. So we had a session for payroll managers and accountants, and you find the video on our website and social media. It's about 2 hours. But if anybody's in charge of doing your payroll, if you are the one doing it because you run a small company, just find 2 hours to watch that session, and you see the benefits that it will provide. So that's what I would recommend. In many of the states now, they have online places where you can file your returns. Encourage your staff to also file their returns after the PAYE has been the regulation that you'll see very soon. We have all. Hello, did I lose you or did you lose me?
Just for like 30 seconds.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I'm saying that you can also find a lot of simplification that is coming out now. So very soon when they issue that PIT regulation, you see simplified form for low-income earners, something you can fill in less than 5 minutes, right? By the time this system is fully developed, a lot of the information you need for tax returns will be pre-populated. You just open your account and the information is there already. So you just need to confirm and move on. So essentially, we also want to get to a point where some software companies for payroll would be accredited. So imagine, and they do this in many countries. So you go through some people who provide payroll services, right? You review the algorithms and the way they have structured their system to ensure that it complies with the law. And then you accredit them. Anybody that uses them, right, does not need to be audited because the system that they go through is compliant. Now, what that does is everybody who is doing payroll wants to do the right thing so that they can attract customers. Customer wants to use the payroll providers that will not give them stress and they will not be audited. And the system is just self-correcting and it's working. It's also one of the reasons why we introduced the regulation of tax agents, that's the consultants, and the process for that accreditation is now being finalized. On dividends, we haven't changed anything. So if you earn a dividend, your dividend will be subject to withholding tax, and the amount that comes to you is not subject to any further tax. But whenever you are filing your returns, you must still report it. If you earn dividend of 100,000 naira, you don't pay any other tax on that 100,000 naira, but report it in your tax returns, and the system will already capture it as not being taxable. We see the capital market has been doing quite well. I think it's doing so well that even the market regulator is becoming concerned. This year alone, in less than 2 months, it has gained over like 26%. But essentially, feel free to invest and earn your dividend. You don't pay any tax on it. PAYE, try and learn a little bit that is available for free. If you are big enough, get a consultant that can help you.
Thank you so much for that. So on a lighter note, yesterday we actually went to the website. They used the tax calculator, so they actually were able to see outputs in terms of pay. So some of them are considering to be tax consultants right now. So they're waiting for the guideline. So that because we now know if you can see that. So thank you so much for that, John, because it's so transparent, it's so easy, and very user friendly. Next question.
Good morning, sir. I'm happy to meet you here. Thank you for the effort, and I personally encourage the new tax reform, and I'm happy to be here. Anyway, my question is, what is the long-term philosophy of this new tax reform? Is the plan to maximize revenue primarily or to stimulate economic growth? That's the first question.
Excellent question. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
The next question, sir, is that what is the target tax to GDP ratio as a result of this new tax reform? We understand that it is very low right now. What is the target? What are we trying to achieve as a result of this? And what are the things that are put in place to ensure that this target is met? Now, my final question is that I'm a little bit, okay, I'm clear about it. I know that a lot of SMEs and individuals are not clear about the exact benefits that this new tax reform gives. That's why you have like a lot of fulabalu on the internet, on social media. And I know that government has done some things in using influencers to, communicate this. But I still feel like there are some SMEs, or majority of SMEs still see this new tax reform as a punitive measure rather than a beneficial innovation to stimulate economic growth. So what are the transition programs in place for SMEs to understand this system better, so that the government and Nigeria as a whole can reach their target tax to GDP ratio in the short term? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think the question around the philosophy of the system, if I want to summarize it, I'll say it's to have an enabling tax system. Enabling in the sense that whatever you are doing that is legitimate, the tax system is helping you to do better, right? You're a small business, it helps you to run your businesses efficiently without the burden of tax. And it encourages formalization. Formalization, for example, Nigeria has large and huge informal sector, which is not even about tax matter, because when you are informal, you're not able to organize yourself in a way that you can scale and grow. You are not investment ready. To attract partners is difficult. You can't grow. You don't keep record properly. It's not good for anybody. So this system was designed to encourage formalization. And one of the good news I can share with you is that the Corporate Affairs Commission came to us and said, whatever we have done, that they are struggling to cope because they have an average of 10,000 businesses applying to register every single day. I'm not talking about 1 month or 1 week. Every single day, 10,000 businesses want to register their business. That, for me, is very exciting because it means that this reform is driving the right behavior. So an enabling tax system enables you to grow. And when you grow, If you are an individual, you can make money. There's one of the reforms to do with the digital economy where young people can now find work remotely, right? That the tax system was an impediment before. So imagine 1 million young Nigerians earning $2,000 average on a monthly basis. That's $2 billion going to different families and helping to strengthen Naira and the exchange rates. And everybody just wins. Even if the tax man makes only 10% of that, that's a lot. So, but as the system is enabling individuals, households, and businesses, small and large and multinational, it means that as the economy is growing, tax is how government shares in the prosperity of firms and individuals. Revenue will then follow. So the primary objective is not revenue, it is growth, it's shared prosperity, is to stimulate economic activities. And the secondary objective, which is natural, is that government will generate sustainable revenue. And that goes to your second point around tax to GDP ratio. Our target is to get to at least, so the word is at least, 18% by 2018, right? Within 3 years of the reform, 26, 27, 2018. We are currently a little over 10%. We're just finalizing the numbers for 2025. Very soon you should have information about the tax to GDP ratio for 2025. We want to get to 18%. And as we are increasing the tax to GDP ratio as a result of growth and reforms, the Nigerian people will then start asking more questions. I was speaking at an event 2 days ago and I said, once I'm done with this, my job, I'll join the campaign for accountability because I think Nigerians are not asking the right questions. A lot of us, we major in minors. You go on TV and say there's a convoy, right? So I was on a panel with a very popular analyst with a lot of young people in the room. And he went on with the president came to Lagos, convoy was 60-something cars. So I just leaned to the guy, I said, but you know that those cars were not the president's convoy. Because if the president comes to Lagos now, what happens is you have 5 governors joining, you have 10 ministers, some commissioners will join the governor. As the president is driving out, everybody's trying to follow the president, right? And then people start counting the number of cars. I say, this is not where our problem is, right? You are talking about issues that are in billions of dollars. You are there sweating over I'm not saying they should be reckless with buying cars. I'm saying as a country, let's pay our attention where it matters the most. How come nobody raised the issue with NNPC taking 30% share of PSC profit, 30% for Frontier? Amount they were remitting to the Federation account was about $12 billion before PIA. After PIA, it dropped to about $2 billion. That's $10 billion you can't explain. Nobody picked that before, right? That's where the elite need to be spending their intellectual capital with some rigor so that we can move this country forward. The last one is the benefit to small businesses. I'll be honest with you, the small businesses had no problems until the influencers, the elites, and some people who were paid to fight the reform created the misinformation. Because our message to small businesses was very simple. You've been exempted. How hard can it be to tell somebody they've been exempted from paying tax? You don't need a lot of explaining. So they were not the ones who created the misinformation. Others did. Because those other people have done the wrong thing for so long. Now they're afraid that they will be forced to do the right thing. And the only way they could fight was to make it the fight of the general population so that the general population can join them in fighting their own fights against the interests of the populace. There was a content creator who confessed, I think he didn't know when he said it. He said that he makes an average of $10,000 a month. He was angry that now we want him to start paying taxes. He even threatened that he will relocate to Dubai. And I said, please find the next flight and go to Dubai. How can you earn $10,000 a month and you feel okay not to pay tax when somebody is cleaning the road, carrying bricks and mortar and sweating to earn 100,000 a month and they are paying taxes in the same society? That content creator will not go online and say they want to tax my $10,000 a month. He will say they want to debit your bank account. He will say that if you're a vulcanizer, any money that goes into your account, they will take part of it. That's the message they created. I think it's our responsibility to educate everybody, but it's also the responsibility of every adult, whether you're educated or not, to learn about the reform for yourself, not just follow people blindly. Because at the end of the day, you can't go to the court and say, I wasn't aware or government didn't explain it enough. If you violate a law, they say the ignorance of the law is not an excuse. And every one of you in the room, whatever you understand, explain to a friend, explain to a family friend. In fact, explain to your enemies if they care to listen.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for managing that. We have, okay, fantastic. 2 questions.
Yeah,
Okay,
Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. So my first question would be just around your concluding statement. So a number of individuals and companies with the new tax law want to come into compliance, but they are scared of, the effect of defaulting all this while. What are the considerations or what messaging can put out there to get them to, come into compliance, even if there may be the penalties for defaulting, but I mean also just putting that in the messaging, not just trying to bring them into the system. I mean, this is today's reality. My second question is majorly around technology. So I mean, when policies like this are being put in place, we're in an era where yes, technology is very in terms of adaptability and user friendliness or ease of even adopting, technology plays a big role now, and technology and artificial intelligence. I also like to get a broad overview in terms of revenue mobilization and harmonization for the nation on where we are real time and where we hope to be at the conclusion of this exercise of this program. Thank you, sir.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so the reality is that all of us, government, revenue agency, businesses, individuals, all of us have areas where we failed in the past. And the reason why Nigeria was struggling with the tax system and everything was because different actors did not play their part. So I personally hold the view that we can, just point the accusing finger on people and say, oh, they didn't comply, they were tax evaders. So, and that goes to your point. So what we are planning, which was one of the things we did at our retreat last week with the Joint Revenue Board, is we've actually developed a voluntary disclosure program. It's now going through the internal processes to get the approvals of the relevant policy makers, and then to domesticate across states. The plan we have, and note that I say is the plan we have, so I don't have powers to approve it. So if the approval is different, you can't blame me. The plan we have is that we've categorized taxpayers for individuals into low income, middle income, and upper income. And for businesses, we categorize them into nano, small, medium, and large. And the plan is that if you are low income earner as an individual, or you are nano and small as a business, just show up. All that you need to do is just show up and register and give your details, and your sins are forgiven for the past. Because really, for this category of taxpayers, when they don't pay their taxes, they don't go and open an account and put the money inside. They have no savings. They can't bring out the money. So we let the past be in the past and move on. Now, if you are middle income earner, or you are a medium-sized business, so you show up and regularize like 1 or 2 years, and then the sins of the rest are forgiven, right? But if you are upper income or large business, you come up and show up and regularize, I think we said 5 or 6 years, because you see, you have the capacity and you just didn't do the right thing. You also want to be mindful that you don't introduce an amnesty where you indirectly punish those that showed up voluntarily. So this is the strategy we have. We think this will help everybody to clean up the past, so the past is not haunting them, and they show up and we all go forward together on a clean slate for the benefit of everyone. The other part is your question on technology and AI. Yes, without technology, you cannot be optimal in anything you do. And it's not just tax, it's everything. Even small businesses today, you use technology to gain advantage, whether it's learning. The only reason I'm able to join you now, not being in Abuja, is because of technology. So we recognize that. And you see that all over the tax reform laws, whether it's electronic invoicing, whether it's fiscalization. Now, that fiscalization is something we want to extend to other areas, not just VAT. So there are countries like in the US where they have the 1099 series, where if you pay someone who is not your employee, you report it to the tax authority so you can get a deduction. So imagine that you have a plumber. The plumber comes to work for you and you pay the plumber 200,000 naira. Now, if there's a requirement for you to report that 200,000 naira to the plumber, you report it and indicate their tax ID. The system captures it that the plumber has been paid. The person that pays can claim that amount. And then when the plumber needs to file his returns, the system already knows whether this plumber earns more than the exempt income. If the plumber lies, the system will say, there's this amount you collected, you have not reported. So you can have a system where that reporting is extended to all tax areas and all income, such that everybody wants to do the right thing, and those who don't do the right thing, the technology is there to fish them out. And that helps us to move to what we call a risk-based audit system. Not the one that the taxman is just throwing things in the dark, hoping that they can catch someone. And they end up over auditing the people that are trying to do their best. Whereas there are so many people who are under the table and nobody is seeing them. This system will change that once it's fully developed, such that the system will flag when if there's a buyer and a seller, the system will correlate the two of them. If the amount the buyer and the seller report is not the same, it will flag that transaction for an audit. So which means part of the philosophy of the new system is under the old system. So we designed the system to treat all of them as liars, as people that cannot be trusted. We've changed that under the new law. It says, let's trust people and give them the benefit of the doubt that they will do the right thing. And when they don't, then there will be consequences. That's why, for example, under this new law, you can get your VAT refund within 30 days, even without an audit. But when you lie about it, you pay the VAT and you pay 100% penalty on top of the amount that you did not pay. With artificial intelligence, the system can also track what you're doing. That's what, I said in one of my comments previously, that we want to get to a point where your tax returns are pre-populated. You see that language is in the tax law already. It defines self-assessment to include what you put in yourself and what the system puts on your behalf. Because some people were already fighting it under the old law to say, you say self-assessment, why is it I open my account and some numbers are there? This system, this new tax law recognizes that we can get information about you and pre-populate your returns. And when you are submitting your returns, right, and you've earned some income, maybe it's rent, and that rent was paid into your GT bank account, and you want to press submit, you did not disclose it, the AI will say, based on the available information, there's this income that was credited to your account on the 1st of July 2026, described as rental income. Do you want to include it in your returns? We'll see whether we'll see how many people have the audacity to skip, right? Because once you know that government has information about you, everybody is honest once they know they can be caught. So that's the way we are building the system, and we think that we'll get there very soon.
Thank you so much for that. I think we can only take one more question. Just one more.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Yesterday, session, we learned that small businesses are exempted from base tax, but original service provider with that were not. Can you please tell us the justification for that? Thank you.
Yeah, so that's my constituency and they don't like me, so they're very angry with me that how can we go and write how can we write a new law and we now say professional services are not eligible as small businesses. And to be honest, it's not about constituency or anything, it's about what is right for the country. The principle behind it, one of the major reasons why you exempt small businesses is they do not have the capacity both in terms of the money. So if I run a small business, and let's say I'm a tailor, let's say I'm a vulcanizer, those people work so hard and the margins are so small. After sweating the whole day, maybe they have only 2,000 naira to take home. So the margins are small. They don't have a lot of disposable income to pay taxes. The other one is knowledge capacity. They don't have the capacity to fill forms, file returns. They may not even remember that it's deadline for filing returns for the month because they don't have the ability. Many of them can't keep record to save their lives. It's not that they are bad citizens. They just don't have the capacity. And there's no law. You should not enact a law that asks anyone to do that which is impossible. That's the concept. But when you now think about professionals, and we're not talking about professional cleaners, people claim to be professional for so many things. So in the new tax law, it has defined the professionals we are talking about. We're talking about accountants, lawyers, medical doctors. Now, these guys, they have high margins. So I can do an advice today to advise a company, just me and maybe one staff, and easily collect 50 million naira. My cost of doing that thing is less than 5 million. So the margins are high. I'm not saying it's high for everybody at all times, but the margins are generally very high. Number two, they have the capacity. They can read the law, they can understand it, they can fill the form, they can remember deadlines. So let them do the right thing. Also because these professionals are the center of society. So imagine, is there any contract that you can do that is material without involving a lawyer? Is there any business you can run without involving an accountant? So these guys, by making them comply with taxes, they will help others to also comply. And in many cases, like VAT, if I'm a professional, even if you exempt me, I don't want your VAT exemption because your exemption means I can no longer claim my input VAT. You've exempted me from charging it, but I want to be able to claim my input VAT. So it's in my interest not to be exempted from VAT as a professional. I'll charge you VAT on my invoice. I'll claim all my input VAT. You that have charged VAT, you can also claim it back because all the restrictions for claiming VAT, we have removed them. So essentially, this was how we landed at that decision to say that professionals should pay taxes, not to be exempted as small businesses. The data we have shows that, unfortunately, professionals were some of the most tax evading category of human beings in Nigeria, and it was not justifiable. So if there are professionals in the room, I guess there will be. I apologize if you don't like the law we have enacted, but at least now you have an idea of how we landed at that decision.
I think we should. No. So, Mr. Taiwo, we know you are a very, very busy man. So, thank you so much for the opportunity. I think we should do this. We should all stand up and give the team. You sit on this, you're part of the team. I will give you a standing ovation and say thank you for the help.
Thank you.
I'm glad that we have people like you in the country that think about Nigeria first and then help us be a better country. Thank you so much for your time. And that will be bye-bye from us.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you.